Well, holy guacamole, guys. It's Dave here. Thank you for tuning in as always. Today was a very big day for Intuitive Machines, the company, as well as the stock. I do have some shares in them, although not as much as I would like, but not going to complain about that. I'm just going to be happy for my gains today. Just want to break down the latest news around Intuitive Machines and talk a little about my own position in the stock and what I'm doing from here. If you're new here, I hope you will consider subscribing by the end of the video. We cover a lot of space stocks on this channel, and if you're not new here, well, thank you for tuning in as always. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into Intuitive Machines. So starting off with the stock today, we were up at one point well over 50% on news that Intuitive Machines has indeed landed the contract for NASA's Near Space Network. This will enable a lot more communications around the moon for NASA's Artemis program. Has a really big potential contract value. We'll go over the details on that later, but first just some information about the stock reaction. Closed the day up about 38%, so still a really amazing day, but obviously, hitting 8.5, 8.8, and then down to 7.8, it did trail off throughout the day. A little funny, really, because we got the news around that 50 basis point rate cut, which would make you think stocks would rip even higher, but that isn't what ended up happening, funny enough. Zooming out a little bit further here, obviously, Intuitive Machines did go absolutely crazy when it first went public via SPAC, like a lot of SPACs did, and had a horrible year. And I think this really just goes to show that once again, the 1 year rule for SPACs and IPOs did work, and this is a rule I have in place for myself, and I personally think everyone else should think about adopting it, which is don't invest in any company going public in the first year, because every time I watch a company go public, it always seems to spike up, and it is always followed by a crash. Rocket Lab, no exception to that. I didn't buy in the first year, and people who did buy in the first year, even though I think it's a great company, they'll tell you that obviously they could have gotten a better price for it because it's still not back to those levels. And, every space SPAC seems to follow the same pattern. So sure enough, after a little over a year, it's done a lot better, and a lot of this was driven by, well, first of all, their lunar lander going to the moon named Odysseus, the IM-1 mission, which got a ton of press and is kind of the first part of NASA's CLIPS program. Did semi-successfully land on the moon before having some issues, kind of landed sideways, I believe, but they were more successful than the other provider who attempted to land on the moon, Astrobotic, and, I think it really did show their prowess. But anyway, that's not for today. Today is Intuitive Machines NSN contract and for. So let's talk a little bit about what this award entails, because it has been a little bit misconstrued by some people. People keep calling it a $4.82 billion contract, but really it's a maximum potential value of $4.82 billion, and you shouldn't count on them making anywhere near that full amount, because we have to wait and see, right? But what I will say is that this company is currently valued, the other day at least when I checked, at about $339 million in their market cap. So anywhere, even a quarter of this potential size being fulfilled is, many multiples of the entire market cap of the company in revenue. So really a big deal for the company. They're starting off with a guaranteed $150 million, and this will take place over 5 years with an option for 5 more years, so potentially 10 years in total. So a long-term thing. We're not talking about them making $1 billion in a year or anything like that necessarily, at least right now. As a part of the contract, the company is going to deploy lunar relay satellites and provide communication and navigation services that will play an essential role in NASA's Artemis campaign to achieve a long-term presence on the moon. So relaying communications from the moon back to Earth. Just a quick overview of what NASA's Near Space Network is. It provides missions out to 2 million kilometers, or 1.2 million miles, with premier communications and navigation services enabling spacecraft to exchange critical data with mission operators on Earth, using space relays in geosynchronous orbit and a global system of government and commercial antennas on Earth. The network brings down terabytes of science data each day. Network supports missions of all kinds, including human spaceflight, science and exploration, technology demonstrations, rocket launches, and more. Some of the missions that it supports include the International Space Station, Hubble Telescope, ICESat-2, and more. And now Intuitive Machines will be playing a big role in this network, expanding it with an eye towards the moon and lunar activities. So as I said previously here, the 5-year contract, which has a maximum value of $4.82 billion, is going to have just an initial award worth $150 million, and incrementally more awards can be issued as work progresses and NASA decides they want to acquire more capabilities under this program. We did have a Cantor Fitzgerald analyst commenting on the news saying that we see the win today as a significant catalyst and validation towards Lunar's outlook and the company's ability to continue to win contracts. Going back to earlier this year, the company really has had quite a year, starting off in February with the first U.S. commercial company to soft land a cargo mission on the moon, although how soft exactly is up for a little bit of debate, as they did have some issues there. Since then, it also became one of 3 companies awarded contracts under NASA's $4.6 billion Lunar Crew Rover program, where they'll perform a study to potentially lead a team and build out NASA's next lunar rover. And they also added a 4th cargo delivery contract with NASA for $117 million last month as well. Their next cargo mission to the moon, mission IM-2, is planned to be in the first quarter, and analysts also expect the first NSN lunar satellite is going to launch on their IM-3 mission, scheduled for late 2025. So a lot going on for this company, all really around the moon, and NASA very much their primary customer. Exciting news, exciting to have the shares go up. Congratulations to all the other lunar shareholders out there watching this video. Funny enough, just because we're going to talk about, my own shares here, I was actually planning to buy call options on this, expecting the NSN contract to be awarded to Intuitive Machines. And the reason I expected it is not that I'm a genius, it's because the company has been saying over and over again on their earnings calls and, every chance they get that they're extremely confident they will land this deal. So I figured, okay, I'll take them at their word. And I didn't end up pulling the trigger on those options because Intuitive Machines ended up climbing to top 3 on the Reddit Wall Street Bets board, and it just went ballistic for no reason. So that kind of scared me away from it. I guess I should have pulled the trigger anyway, because here we are at much higher levels. But I did buy 200 shares a while back. I did tweet about it, so if you want to get more up-to-date information, usually I'll tweet about pretty much any trade I'll make around space companies if you're interested. Back on August 29th, I opened a small position, 200 shares. I figured not only would it help me track the stock, but I did think they had a good chance of winning this NSN contract as well as some others. Francisco, I believe, also joined me on this one, so we both are doing well here. And Space Investor Daily, shout out to him as well. What this means for me is I bought my shares at a cost basis of $4.95, and that cost me $991. The market value at the end of the day today is now $1,520. So almost a double, not quite. I was sitting at much more than a double earlier in the day. If you see below this, when we were really high, I decided to sell a covered call on these shares, which basically means someone has the right to buy it from me if it's higher than $11 per share on October 18th, and I Don't think it will be, but honestly, if it is and I get to sell my shares for $11 when I bought them for $4.95, totally cool with that. For this privilege, the person is paying me $141, and that has already devalued significantly as the shares dropped. So added another $139 on top of that cash I made. So getting a bit closer to a double, but still not quite there. Yeah, obviously I would love to have more shares, but you know what? $700 is still $700, and no matter how much your portfolio grows, I think you still have to appreciate the value of money and what you can do with it. So not going to complain about that at all. Also, just figured I'd point out this video I did make a while back, about a month ago, talking about some potential future catalysts for LUNR, where I did highlight in detail this NSN contract that I was thinking they would land. So clearly, this has been on my mind. Some people on Twitter seem to think that, you know, I just pull stuff out of the air and say afterwards I was expecting it, but no, I definitely have been thinking about this before. So as I interact with some people on the internet and on Twitter, which I know is always risky business, they say, well, Dave, if you were so sure they were going to win this contract, why didn't you buy bigger on LUNR? And what I will say is being confident that a company is going to accomplish something or announce something is very different than being confident you know for sure how the stock is going to move. A while back, I tried to make a similar move on LUNR when they won that deal for the study for the lunar rover. I thought that was going to be big news because they were now in the short list of potentially getting multi-billion-dollar contracts to build NASA's next lunar rover. The stock didn't do anything and actually dropped, even though they did announce that win. So I was no longer quite as confident in what the reaction would be, even though I was very confident that this was going to come. But it does look like, if you watch companies closely, and something that seems as incredibly obvious to you can still move stocks big, and I guess other people who aren't watching as closely are not expecting it, and you can in fact make a good amount of money watching these space companies closely, which is what we try to do on this channel, and I'll try to do more of that going forward as well. Intuitive Machines, I do think, is a company to watch. Their balance sheet has had some concerns for me with liquidity levels a bit lower than I would like to see. Nevertheless, they're just signing so many darn contracts, and they seem to have a really great relationship with NASA, as well as a lot of former NASA employees. So I think they do have the trust of NASA now after the mostly success of that IM-1 mission, all these new contracts coming in, and, you know, there's so much more to come for the Artemis program. Of course, there's a ton of risks around any company, and this one in particular has a massive single customer risk or customer concentration risk, where if NASA decided to pivot, they're not focusing on Artemis anymore, whatever, it could be absolutely disastrous for the company. So that's something as well to keep in mind for Intuitive Machines. Do let me know, if you're watching this, what your share count is and cost basis, if you don't mind. Always interested to hear, as well as what you're planning to do with your shares, continuing to hold, sell after this big day, or buy more. I'm always interested to hear. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this video interesting. If you did, please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed, and I hope you have a great day and a great rest of the week. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.